Hi there, this is Karen Nelson of Tarot Art Therapy, and I wanted to share with you kind of a basic introduction to really what art therapy is. This is completely aside from anything to do with tarot cards. This is a legitimate, educated, certifiable branch of psychotherapy and counseling. So art therapy is one of those subcategories, and I really became interested in it about a year and a half ago. I'm an art teacher, and it kind of came up as some things that you could do with trauma victims, those who had been in like a natural disaster or who had survived some kind of abuse, whether it was childhood or very recent. And I was very intrigued at some of the things that would come up in dealing with art therapy exercises. So I just had to do some more learning about it. So I was able to take some courses and do some life coach certification programs specifically to do with art therapy. And I want to share a little bit with you today because I really think that's the foundation of anything else that comes along under that umbrella. We have seen an explosion of the mandala coloring books or the meditation coloring books. Even paint by numbers have come back as ways of kind of slowing people down and getting their focus on something that they can do with their hands and experience some color, some texture, and just give them a little space to sort of let things process. So art therapy actually goes deeper than that and tries to look at the subconscious. That's one of the really remarkable things about art therapy is that it is based in a visual language. And I'm a very linguistic, verbal person. I've always communicated with writing primarily and speaking. But when the point was made to me that our first language is visual. When we are infants, we come into the world, all we have to see is what is before us. We don't know any words. We couldn't speak them if we did know them. Everything is like a camera being left on record, and we just soak in all of these images, and they go back into the memory banks of our minds, and we try to make sense of them later. The tricky part about having an only solo visual language is that you still have emotions. So then your brain, in its constant bid to make connections, is taking the images that it sees and binding them to these emotions that it feels at the time. So sometimes we have things that are rooted so far back that we don't even know why we feel a certain way about a memory or a person from our past, or why the sight of something, or could be the smell or the sound. You know, we've all had a song come on that played at a certain time in our life, and it's just like we're right back there. Well, visual images are also the same. So we have these connections to our emotions, and once we kind of dig down in there and find when did that happen, what was going on, how do I feel about it now as opposed to how I felt about it then, we can sort of unravel that and decide what we want to keep and what is no longer really serving us. So for I guess, more professional definition, art therapy is really a sensory approach to exploring and expressing emotions. It can be both therapeutic and a spiritual practice. It could be a solo activity, or you can engage in it in a group setting. It can help you reach your goals, lower anxiety and stress. You can process grief. It can inspire you to make positive changes in your life. Art therapy works uniquely because it bypasses all those internal censors and the negative voices in our heads, and processing the images with our eyes and our hands kind of circumvents that verbal story that we've been telling other people and ourselves about our experiences and beliefs. So, since our first language was that of images, like, we were taking it in, we were seeing the whole thing like it was a movie, that's what made those visual images have such strong emotional ties. And when the person engages in art therapy, they are likely to bring up feelings that may have been hidden for years. And that the method of exercises that I'm going to be sharing with you, they can help you release those emotions. They can build self-esteem. They can kind of make a bridge to other ways of communication. So you might do a piece of artwork and suddenly be able to translate it into words that you can put in a journal or communicate to somebody else. So really, art therapy, what I love about it is that it gives voice to things that may be unspeakable. And for myself, being, such a highly verbal person, that was huge to be able to tap into and access, because when I'm highly affected, I can't speak. And sometimes I can't write. So being able to get down on a baser level and still access that and process it and heal from it, that is a gift. Now, let me tell you what art therapy is not. Art therapy is not a replacement for professional counseling. It is not a replacement for medication. It is not a replacement for any directives from your medical professional. These are merely my opinions. I'm sharing my personal experiences. This is not in any way to be taken as medical advice or direction. That is for you to seek from a certified, licensed practitioner in the area of healthcare of your choice. Art therapy also does not interpret artwork in the classical critique tradition. In art classes, when I'm actually teaching different types of media, we will talk about art appreciation and critiquing, and you can go to a museum and have that, to the nth degree. That's not what art therapy is doing. We're not here to judge anybody's work or ability. In fact, you don't even have to know how to draw, because the exercises that I share with you, I'm going to either talk you through, because they're so simple. If you know your shapes, you can probably do what I'm asking you to do. If you have other artistic ability that you want to bring into it, wonderful. But we're not really here to interpret your finished piece. And you may not even really consider that you have a finished piece. I like to think of it just like journaling. It's practice. Nobody ever has to see it. It doesn't have to be beautiful. So it's for you to just kind of get some things down on the page and see what they mean to you. Also, art therapy does not fix people or their problems. It does help us make sense of who we are and what we're going through, but it is not going to be a magic pill that fixes everything. Art therapy does not have divine healing power. Although some exercises are similar to a spiritual practice because they have an introspective nature. There is a meditative quality to some things. This should not really be a surprise to you, because we have all experienced the state of being in the zone, where you're drawing something, or you're playing music, or you're exercising, whatever really engages you. Whenever you slip into that state where you've lost all track of time, you are completely focused on this one activity, that is the meditative state. That is where you are going to dive inside, be introspective, and just be able to shut everything else out for a period of time. So that's why I say it can be kind of a spiritual practice, because in the same way that people will meditate or pray or follow some kind of ritual or routine, you can do the same thing with art therapy and get similar results. Also, like I said before, art therapy doesn't strive to teach any specific artistic techniques or skills. I encourage you to work with as many types of media as possible, because as an art teacher, I've found that most of my students would say, I'm not any good at art, I can't do this. And what I had discovered was they were not good at certain types of media yet, either because they hadn't learned how to use it, or it just didn't kind of click with their personality. So that's why some people love to work with charcoal. Some people are into watercolors. Others want to do collage work. Some people love the feel of clay and working with pottery. So there's all these different aspects and methods that you can use within art. So I really encourage you to try different media whenever possible, because once you tap into the thing that's just like, oh my God, this is so fantastic, you will be off like a rocket, and you will really be pleased with your results. So if you're looking at art therapy exercises, I have my own kind of 4-step approach to it, and I'll just share that really briefly here. I can go into depth quite a lot on it, but this is just kind of what I've come to the basis of how to approach every exercise. And so there's 4 steps: activation, exploration, translation, and representation. And with activation, this is just like the introduction, the setup of the exercise. What materials do you need? What memories or situations should you kind of be calling to mind? Any additional information just to help you get started with the activity. With exploration, this is the activity portion of the activity. So this is where you put the paint on the page or the pencil to the paper and see what comes out. Then in translation, this is the phase that assesses, remember we're not critiquing, assesses what brought out to the page and try to put some words to the meaning that you have found there. Now that could be just speaking it to someone else. You could journal it. You could write a poem about it. You might have some sort of online discussion about it. Whatever method works for you to kind of translate whatever popped up on the page to putting some kind of words to it. And then number 4 is the representation. And this is kind of the translation phase's culminating step. Sometimes you might have a follow-up activity where you take a certain aspect of the exercise and you expand on it. Or there may have been some new information that came to light that you really want to explore and look at. May not happen every time, but that's certainly something to look at. You may actually find that an exercise reveals some kind of truth to you, and you want to make a piece of artwork that will remind you just of that truth, not of the whole process it took to get there, which may be very messy on your page and in your mind. But once you get that clarity, you may want to just write a quote and stick it up on your wall, or create a painting or a drawing that represents that to you so that you can refer back to it and just get little reminders of, hey, yeah, I made some progress there. This is getting better. Highly recommend that. Okay, so that is just a little brief introduction to what art therapy is and is not, and kind of what to expect from what I will be sharing here with you. And please, if you can, like and subscribe on the channel. Leave me a comment below. If you have any questions, I will try to answer it to the best of my ability. I do ask that you be kind and considerate of everyone, including myself, and I will do the same for you. I look forward to sharing more with you to do with art therapy and exploring some of the avenues here that I think you're going to have a lot of fun with. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you again.